there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. Well, as usual, today is a fun video, but it's basically about cutting up your stamps. Now, actually this isn't as dramatic as it makes it sound, but I have this gorgeous stamp set here. This is the Delightful Daisy stamp set. This is a Julie Hickey Designs, but basically you can do this with any sort of flowers that look like this. And I chose this stamp for a specific reason. Even when I purchased it, these are the sorts of things that go through my head when I'm looking at a stamp set like this. It's got lots of big space so that I can do things inside of the leaves. I've created a card with using some wax candle resist with this stamp set, and it means I can also do watercoloring or different techniques with color inside of the leaves. But it also gives me lots of room for being creative with the actual flower itself, because as is, the flower is gorgeous, but what if we want to use it in a completely different way? It is a large stamp, or it's quite big, so that means that it's limited to how many times we can use it on a page, but I want to change that. Of course, I don't want to ruin my actual stamps, so I'm going to show you how I do this. Now, I did pick a different leaf design than the one that actually comes in the stamp set, because again, the one that comes in the stamp set is pretty big. Although it's gorgeous, it's just too big for this project that I'm going to do today. And I end up using some unexpected recycled materials, which I love the look of. So this turned out really well. Now, I am stamping out a couple of these. At this point, I wasn't 100% sure, as per usual, of the direction that I was going in with this card. So I'm going to stamp out the leaves a couple of times and the flowers a couple of times with some VersaFine Onyx black ink. This is a gorgeous pigment ink. It stamps very crisp and very black dark ink. I love it for detail, fine detail. Then I'm going to pop on a layer of clear embossing powder. This is not necessary, but as per usual, I do this so that I can make less mistakes in life. Because as I said, pigment ink sits on top of the paper, so it stays wet a little bit longer, whereas dye ink sinks into the paper and dyes the paper essentially. So that's why it dries faster. Now also I am using the embossing powder so that I can't smudge this, because I'm going to be doing a little bit of cutting up and working with this to make this look like it was a different stamp all along, because as I say always, it's what this channel is about. I want value for money when it comes to purchasing stamp sets, die sets, tools, any products that I buy that I want to use in my craft room. I want to make sure I can get really good value for money. So I am going to fussy cut these because I don't have dies. I don't even think dies exist for this, but it is a gorgeous stamp and so versatile. So any flower stamp that you have is similar to this is going to work out just fine. Now I fussy cut this one out. This is really easy because it has smooth edges and doesn't take me long at all. Again, another point that I look for when purchasing a stamp set. How am I going to fussy cut this out? Am I able to fussy cut this? Am I going to want to fussy cut this? Because if I don't want to, then it probably won't happen. So I'm going to run around a little bit of this black marker pen. This happens to be a Faber-Castell big brush marker, but any black pen, when I have done heat embossing, stamped it in black and then heat embossed it, I'm going to run around the edges. This just makes my fussy cutting look like a pro. It looks like this is how it was intended to be. There's no white core around the outside, and this is just makes it look neat and pretty. But this is the part where we are going to extend our stamps, because I want this to be kind of a daisy from the side. So I'm going to cut roughly halfway. I do need to go around the center because I need to keep the center of the flower, and this is the reason that I stamped the second one. I knew I would need two of these, but I just want to show you how you can actually make two out of the one flower. I am going to need the center from the other one, so it sort of defeats the purpose, but you might just want to make your own center and then you'll be good to go. But here I'm going to run around the pen just where I have cut again, so just keeping those edges all uniform and neat. But this is going to turn into our own daisy. So here's where I'm stealing the center from this one, just so that, as I said, I can use it for the second one. But out of this one flower, I have got two flowers now, and it changes the look of this daisy If you wanted to, you could layer these up, so put one on top of the other, and that definitely would give your flower more dimension. It would give a little bit more going on, which I really like the look of too. Now, this is some packaging that I got a little while ago. I actually have already done some videos on how to create backgrounds with this. It's just corrugated cardboard. It's sort of flexible, but I thought, what if I use this with some dies? Now, I have a die set here. This is the Layering Vintage Labels from Honeybee Stamps. I have been investing in a couple of different kind of different options for layering, just sort of adding a little bit more. I felt like I was lacking a little bit in my card making just in that area, so I purchased a couple of different ones, and this is one of them. Now, obviously when I run this through my die cutting machine, it is going to flatten. That's just the nature of how it is, and you sort of just have to accept that. I mean, it just is what it is, but this was packaging. It came as packaging for something in the post. And if I can recycle this and even better, love the look of it, then this is right up my alley. So this die cut like a dream, everything just kind of falls off, and I have this gorgeous, absolutely perfect kind of focal point, I guess. Now this die is an A2 size, so this means it's going to cover up the exact front of my card perfectly. Now I kind of want these to be white daisies, but I think I need just a tiny bit of little bit of color there, just because otherwise I think the card is looking just a little bit plain. I'm not sure. I just felt like I needed a tiny little bit of something. Now I start by putting on some of this yellow. This is the Squeezed Lemonade, and I'm using one of my favorite little brushes for coloring at the moment. I got a little bit too much color on there, so I'm just taking a baby wipe and just giving it a quick brush over, and this is going to wipe off probably half of the color, and that's kind of more what I was looking for. I know it's really hard to see on film just how much color there kind of is, but it was just enough to tell that they were sort of off-white, that they had a little bit of coloring to them, but not too much. So it's kind of just the center I was going for. Then I added a tiny little bit of, I think this is wild honey, just on the very inner bit there, and then again just enough to kind of give it a tiny little bit of color, and if I add too much, because these are water reactive, I'm able to just use a little baby wipe or a little bit of water, a little bit of paintbrush with some water on or something, and I can dilute it down and then take away the color as well. So that's one thing I do love about using water reactive inks for coloring, is that I'm able to take away the ink too. Now same with this one here. This was my green brush. I kind of have one little brush for each color family. I definitely don't have lots and lots of them, so I just use the greens one, and again you cannot even see the color on it, but there is a little bit of green left over on some of those leaves. Now this is the next part. So I don't have any stems to my flowers obviously, but I'm going to make some because I want them. So all I'm doing is taking a black fine liner pen. I just drew literally 2 straight lines, well actually 2 wonky lines, and then cut them out like it was always meant to be, and it kind of goes with the scribbly sort of nature of the stamps to begin with, and I think it ends up looking just fine. So I made 2 of those because there is 2 of them, 2 little flowers that I'm going to pop on this one. Now putting this together is just a really simple composition. It's kind of a go-to. I love the look of this corrugated cardboard, and although it flattened out a lot, that will do a couple of things. A, make it a lot easier to post, but B, I think it's still got a lot of the kind of feel to it. I think you can still see that it was the corrugated cardboard. I think it still has that feel to it, and I love that it was recycled material. So I have used some nice strong glue, some Ranger Multi-Medium in the matte finish. That's what's inside my glue bottles. I'm going to pop these little daisy heads here, just making sure that I've kind of got one up the top and then one to the side. Now if I were to use the original stamp for this, it would be quite squishy to fit 2 of them up the top like this, but we are completely changing the look of the stamp whilst kind of getting an exactly different look from what the original stamp was, and I think that that's just perfect. It's the best to get the most out of the supplies that we choose to invest in. So with the second daisy head, I did choose to pop this one up with a little bit of foam tape, and the first one is put down just with some liquid glue, so it's directly down onto the cardboard. And then there's my second little daisy center that I also needed as well. It was a bit of a shame that I ended up cutting into the second flower, but I think I have a plan for that as well. I think I could use it and just put a button or something creative like that in the middle, and that would mean that that one wouldn't go to waste as well. So I'm cutting a couple of little stems to go, making sure that they just finish off nicely at the bottom and finish in the same place. I kind of looked at the leaves. I'm going to come back to the leaves in a minute because I almost felt like I didn't need them, but you'll see what I do in just a second. I do need a sentiment for this one. As per usual, I have been enjoying leaving sentiments off cards for a little bit, but I felt like this one most definitely needed it. So this is where I was playing around with the leaves, thinking 1, 2 kind of looks okay. I don't know, this didn't look okay. I wasn't sure at this point, but anyhow. So as for a sentiment, I'm going to use this one from Simon Says Stamp. I love these big, bold, plain greetings. I think this is just, it kind of goes with anything. It kind of goes with any occasion. You can make it happy, you can make it the thinking of you, and I really like this 2 simple gorgeous daisies for a thinking of you sentiment. I think that's just really sweet, and the card's not too bright and in your face and crazy. I think it's just lovely muted neutral tones, so that is going to work perfectly for me. So simple. It's going to be a nice stripe across the middle. That tan, the corrugated cardboard from the tan color, I think that is just the perfect backdrop. It creates that perfect something that you kind of need going on in the background with that gorgeous little shape cut out. So I feel like this one came together really easily, and although I didn't have a plan, I really love this. Now, I must admit that there was one bit that I was struggling with at the end. Do I add little embellishments or do I not? I very nearly stopped here, very nearly. So I like this perfect as is. I don't think it needs the leaves at all in the end, but I did decide to go ahead and add some little Nouveau drops just for a couple of extra dots. So you can let me know what you think of that. It was so hard to decide. I like it both ways. Nonetheless, as per usual, I will have a list of the supplies that I've used in this video down in the description box below. I'll also have a link to the Buy Me a Coffee in case you'd like to support my channel, which I appreciate so much. Other than that, I will see you in the next video.